Thank you. And thank you, Michael, very much. Thank you, Gavin. Thank all of you. It's great to see you. It has been one hell of a week. Not to drop names, but it started on Monday morning with Donald Trump face-to-face. I was there for an interview that had been scheduled the week prior. I've known Donald Trump since 1987. Not particularly well for the first 20 years. A little bit better once the Good Day New York situation started. And I knew that this man was very, very different. And I am very proud that I predicted he would win the election the day he declared, June 16th, 2015. It was that line when he said, America doesn't win anymore, and I looked at Rosanna Scotto, and I'm a bit of a space, I'm obsessed with it. You know, we hadn't been to the moon in 50 years or 45 years at that point, and America did seem moribund. And it just hit home, and because I did not grow up in the media, Michael mentioned I spent a lot of time in the military and living all across the country and not kind of talking to media people every day who are always scheming and wondering and worrying about what the other one thinks. And just being a person, you can be, I think, a far more effective observer of what's going on. So I asked him about Tucker Carlson, and he said he was shocked. He said he was, Tucker's a very good person. He liked him a lot. And we'll see what happens, Greg. I think it's going to be fine. But he is actually going to be fine. It's fascinating. Two things have happened now. Donald Trump gets arrested, and his power increases. His popularity increases. And they try to cancel Tucker Carlson, and I think we all know now that he is much bigger than Fox News. Fox News is rapidly becoming a smaller place, and Newsmax is becoming a bigger place. And, a while ago, gosh, truth teller, it sounds so grand, but yeah, I'll take it because it's true. I never knew how easy it was to tell the truth. The other stuff, what goes with it, I guess I learned it actually from Trump. The media, they spend so much time being horrified by the man, not studying him, and not seeing what you can learn. And along the way, I guess it was January, right around the Black Lives Matter riots, and when he held up a Bible outside of a church, and somehow that was seen as the most outrageous thing that ever happened in America. I knew I had to write a book, number one, which I did, and it's called Justice for All, How the Left is Wrong About Law Enforcement, available wherever books are sold, including the back of the room. And it's actually easy to tell the truth. It's kind of hard not to tell the truth. You gotta guess what people want to hear, and how do you do that? How do you read minds? And I think that's where a lot of neuroses come from. So it's interesting. They try to kill two people, Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson. And immediately we saw that it failed. For those of us who believe in God, sometimes the suffering takes a lot longer before the good kicks in or the resurrection, and wow, it's happening instantaneously. So it doesn't really feel like it's such a bad time to tell the truth. I think the other side is losing, and great things are happening out of bad things. And you may remember Tucker, he gave a quick video message the other night, which was amazing, and it was viewed by, I think, 100 million people so far. It's astounding. And he said there are still some places to go for the truth. Not many, but there are some. And I actually claimed right away, truthfully, that I'm pretty sure he's talking about me. So Tucker, I got a business to run, but I also, I actually know he was talking about me. So you may remember, I think it was just last month, that Tucker Carlson showed footage that was given to him or granted access by Speaker McCarthy. Some of the things that the January 6th committee did not want us to see. Like the Horns guy, Jacob Chansley, being escorted around the Capitol and his movements being facilitated right into the United States Senate. which confirms my suspicions that this was a false flag operation and a setup. Prior to that, the doors that were left open, the cops aggressively waving people in, police officers just standing there as people came in, and the death of Ashley Babbitt, the murder of Ashley Babbitt, and it's right there before our eyes. And quite frankly, I made a bit of a campaign on this night after night. What Tucker broke was new and fascinating and huge, and I could not, nor would I even try to resist. It's amazing. Sure, it's a competitor network and all that stuff, and but it was so important. And something interesting happened. The liberal media freaked out, not only for Tucker Carlson, that he did it. No, by the way, now that Tucker is gone, or Tucker is gone because the government demanded it. People are talking about, oh, what happened inside Fox in the lawsuit, and what was Rupert Murdoch get his feelings hurt because he was called a name. You have to remember, and it's so easy to forget, that 3 weeks ago, the majority leader of the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer, demanded his ouster out loud, condemned him, said what he did was unforgivable. He showed unaltered footage that we own, and somehow this is unforgivable. So Media Matters wrote the following story, and this is why I said, Tucker's talking about me. Newsmax gave Tucker Carlson's January 6th revisionism nearly 7 times more coverage than his own Fox colleagues. Greg Keller reports Newsmax's flagship show provided the most promotion of any program of the new footage, with more than 37 minutes of coverage, a total exceeding what all of Carlson's Fox colleagues provided combined. Happy to do it, Tucker. Media Matters, and what's his name? Mark Levin complains about it all the time, but like a broken clock. Sometimes they get it right. After spending several minutes promoting Carlson's findings, Kelly attacked Carlson's colleagues for not giving the story sufficient attention. Tucker's own network, Fox News, is ignoring probably the biggest story they've had in maybe 20 years since a correspondent entered Baghdad with coalition troops. He called out the hosts of Fox and Friends for having no interest and ignoring the huge news that everybody at Fox is talking about. Are they jealous? And that, oh, by the way, fuels a lot of politics, business, and it's never really discussed. Jealousy is a real thing. It's corrosive, but it's not stopping Tucker. What's next for him? Well, the first thing is, I'm told whatever platform he winds up on, I'll be on his show to talk about my book, because it was vetoed by his bosses, and I look forward to that. So, in the book, there are 2 or 3 things that I'm really proud of, and it's a critique of Black Lives Matter, this current crazy moment. Some things I wanted to document. People have been lying about my father for a very long time, and about stop and frisk, especially Bill de Blasio. You know, he had a state-of-the-art police department, and he did 3 things. Number 1, he lied and he said the police department was broken. Then he claimed to fix what wasn't broken, and now he's actually managed to break it. The police department is on its knees, essentially. It's been gutted. The cops are basically paid to not be aggressive. They can't be aggressive. They want to not go to jail. It is a heinous situation, and it's entirely man-made. I also wanted to talk about, January 6th, and I just mentioned, there are, as much as I support law enforcement, and I do, quite frankly, the book is dedicated to men and women in uniform, there is a limit. And when you have Capitol Hill cops who failed miserably on January 6th, received gold medals, and then go on to yell and scream at members of Congress, our elected leaders, for not supporting them enough, or coming out on the side of Donald Trump, it is very close to something called fascism. Unelected, armed people telling us what to do. By the way, this is kind of new, not terribly, but in 2008, I actually voted for Barack Obama. I was an entirely different person. In fact, shall I go now? If you, everybody in this room, 7 years. It takes 7 years for your body to totally regenerate. Every cell that we have, if I were to put a number on every single cell in your body, in 7 years they'd all be gone. I had to learn a lot. I had to find God, quite frankly. I was conned by Barack Obama, though, regarding race. I thought, wow, here's a guy who could really straighten out America about some fundamental things that are happening that, quite frankly, prominent white people, it's kind of awkward for them to talk about. When he went to that church and said, look, absentee fathers, it's a problem in all communities, but nowhere worse than in the African American community, and we have a problem, we have to do something about it. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And then he said, it leads to illiteracy, it leads to higher incarceration, lower dropout, higher dropout rates, everything bad you can associate with the breakdown of the nuclear family. Well, it was an amazing moment, but he was hit hard by the left, and he chose to never really go there again. And then he advocated a victim grievance approach to just about everything. And Obama, you know, he had his own kind of, I guess, conflicting views of his own identity. It's in his own book. People thought he was too white. They didn't trust him, and he had to choose. He could have been this amazing transformational figure. He chose to go one way and divide us, to enhance his own brand and make a lot of money. So it falls to other people, the most unlikely suspects, to talk about some of the thorniest issues of our time. It's too bad that he squandered a beautiful opportunity. So we'll take it from here. Now, waiting in the wings, by the way, is Kari Lake, and now, I know in my gut that she's going to be president someday. I used to live in Arizona. I was a Marine pilot based in Yuma, Arizona. I would see her on television from time to time, and okay, but I didn't, whatever, just somebody on television. She got my attention, though, when on, I think it was a night in 2019, she said, Donald Trump one day will be reelected with 49 states behind him. I actually feel that that's not going to happen, and it didn't happen. However, his message ultimately is a unifying message. It's a beautiful message, and they have to lie about him. They have to attempt to destroy him, because really, how can you be against what he's talking about? This is America versus evil. This is black and white. It's so cut and dried. And to see her boldly speak the truth in the most magnetic, compelling way I've ever seen, really, we have a future president of the United States. And, you know, I mentioned how I voted for Barack Obama. I didn't realize that. Okay, stop. That's all in the past. That's all in the past. Well, I was a selfish person, consumed with status, worried most of the time. I was a big drinker. A lot of things going on in my life. And the worst thing happened to me in the world. I was falsely accused of something and kind of dragged through the mud, which is a process, quite frankly, I recommend to everybody. As long as you're innocent. There's some amazing things can come from awful moments. And somebody gave me a Bible, and I said, when did you become such a church lady? I was almost insulted by it. And I put it on the shelf for a couple of years, and it was a Charles Stanley Life Principles Bible. And it had little notes and footnotes and essays. Anyway, I didn't need it because I had everything figured out. And a couple of years later, out of curiosity, I started reading, and miracles started happening. And I know not everybody here is an alcoholic, but perhaps everybody here goes through what I used to go through on Sunday nights. Terror about the week ahead. And now, thanks to God and Jesus, quite frankly, and I always wanted to do this with the help of a psychiatrist or a psychologist or alcohol or a pill. My Sunday nights feel like Friday nights. You know how Friday night feels feels great, right? Because the world tells you it's okay to feel great. I've engineered it, well, God did, that Sunday night actually is just as good as Friday night. And I highly recommend it to anybody. So really, it's my 15 minutes are up. Wow. Well, not really, not out there, right? 15 minutes up there. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to take a question or two if anybody has one. And if not, get the heck out of here. Sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're fine.
This lady here, I was curious, it's obvious that McCarthy, McDaniel, and McConnell not kind of supporting kind of the election deal that went on in the governorship for Arizona.
Yeah.
It's like they don't show any support at all. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts, and as you know, one of the debates, full disgusting. I feel like it's like the GOP coming over. They obviously don't want America First candidates. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, Mitch McConnell is one of the worst people. He's not really elected to anything. It's just amazing to me. He is out for himself. He's totally compromised, in my opinion, vis-a-vis his wife, Elaine Chao, and her father, and all that stuff. That's real. And the money that he has, I think that's a major, major conflict. He's not in it for us. He's in it for protecting the swamp. By the way, the swamp is a real thing. I mean, the deep state is a real thing. It's been around since 1932. I know, by the way, the swamp had a big role, the deep state had a big role in taking out Richard Nixon, of all people. Yeah, so Mitch McConnell, I have no use for whatsoever. I can't believe he's still in power. Kevin McCarthy, I have mixed feelings about, all right? I mean, he wasn't my choice. He has done the right thing occasionally. When he said that the officer who killed Ashley Babbitt was doing his job, I mean, that's a real problem. Then again, he gave the footage to Tucker Carlson. Then again, he's not giving it to anybody else. So you see what I mean? It's a mixed bag. And Kari, the establishment is still against her. This is going to be an uphill fight, but she's pretty good at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Yes. Of course not. No. Well, I'll tell you what, Mitt Romney, right? I voted for Mitt Romney. You want to go again? You know, and I got to tell you, in 2012, it was a different time, and I thought Mitt Romney, for all his limitations, and now I'm disgusted by him. But back then, he was a decent man, and the way they destroyed him and mocked him, and it was Donald Trump wasn't going to fall for any of that, right? I mean, he just blew the game up. That was the last kind of traditional candidate I think we saw before. Maybe we'll ever see it again. Nice guy, but you know where nice guys finish. So, hi, yes, ma'am.
The best way to deal with people who don't want to talk about the election being stolen in 2020. Trump talks about it. If you don't see what happened and try to stop what happened again, how is the Republican ever going to win again?
On the last part, what Trump said last week is we have to crush them, 20 million votes, 30 million. It has to be so overwhelming that they're cheating and will not. That's his answer. And we have to adopt, we have to get into mail-in voting and ballot harvesting, the legal ballot harvesting, which is legal in Nevada and all that stuff. It does stifle. A lot of people freak out when they start talking about the election. Now, I do believe the election was stolen. Absolutely. And I know all the circumstantial evidence, right, in the states, and we saw what happened on TV that night. I do not have the technical skill to prove that. I cannot prove that academically. I can't. However, what I'd like to do is focus on Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a constitution, a state constitution, and it says you can vote in two ways, in person or absentee with excuse. and they threw that out without changing the Constitution. They came up with a new law without changing the Constitution. That is illegal. The whole damn election was illegal. When Rudy Giuliani was in court, federal court, and he's quoted as saying, well, this is not a fraud case. And everybody went nuts saying, you see, they don't even have any evidence of fraud. He wasn't arguing that. He was arguing this is a constitutional matter. And so I focus on Arizona. I focus a little bit on Michigan, what I can establish. But technically, and look, I would like to see paper ballots, right? They were simple, and we could count them, and I don't trust the technology. But I can't prove it. I can't prove it. Ikari could probably prove certainly. Well, excuse me. 2,000 Mules is great. And I interviewed Dinesh D'Souza twice. It's not full. It's not a 1,000% there. It is. They'll tell you that. He didn't have subpoena power. There were some compelling stories. I quite frankly think there was a little bit too much time drinking coffee in the kitchen and talking about things, right? I wanted to see more meat and potatoes about, okay, this is it, bring it on. Well, okay, a lot of it was intriguing, but it did not seal the deal as far as that election being stolen. Sorry, in my opinion. Hi, Sandra. Sorry.
Good evening, Greg.
Once in a while, you mentioned that maybe you might consider running for mayor. I think everyone in this room would be so happy to have Mayor Kelly as our next mayor.
Well, a little thing called reality came knocking on my door. It's an overwhelmingly Democrat town. However, miracles happen. Eric Adams was elected with 200,000 votes in a city of 8 million people. 200,000 people voted for him in the Democratic primary. That made him the de facto mayor. That's not a lot of people. I couldn't run as a Republican. I might run as an independent. I'll take a look at it in a year, and I'll make a decision in a compressed amount of time. I'll tell you why I'm thinking about it, though. It's like, I remember somebody came to my dad who was totally qualified in every respect to be mayor. And when he decided not to do it, this well-intentioned executive came to him and said, I'd like to be the mayor, and I want you to help me, and how do I do it? And he said, well, what makes you think you could be a good mayor? And he said, well, I'm a good manager. My dad said, well, that's about number 73 on the list of things you have to be to win. To win. And actually, I got a couple of things. Look, I have not lived that kind of life, the perfect life to be a manager of a now $106 billion budget. That's crazy. But it's not inconceivable. We'll see. Thank you. How are you? She needs a microphone over there.
Greg, always inspired by truth tellers like you. I have a quick question. If you know regarding the future of Robert Paulson, could you see him maybe joining your network, and what would be your thoughts about that?
Well, my boss, Chris Ruddy, was recently quoted as saying, we'd love to talk to Tucker. I think he said he anticipates that Tucker's going to do something independent, something new and different. Tucker also may run for president. You know that, right? It's not, yeah. And I'd love to see him as vice president with Donald Trump. It's not Miranda Devine, who's a fantastic journalist from the New York Post. She's been talking about that, writing about it, I believe. And if not 2024, maybe 2028. Tucker. But I don't see him, I don't think he's going to be hanging around Newsmax, unfortunately. But I do consider him an ally and a friend, and we text every now and then. I gave him my best wishes. Haven't heard back. He's too busy texting Don Lemon, apparently. That's fine. Yes, ma'am. Hi. Through my lawyers.
Newsmax lawyers.
Yes.
Requested the government give you, Newsmax, the tapes, the January 6th tapes, and if they haven't done it, and you requested, what have they given as an excuse?
I do remember, not lawyers weren't involved, but I just fired off an email, and 3 producers just fired off an email, so we've officially requested it, right? These things sometimes happen above my head. Look, quite frankly, they had an identity crisis over there at Fox News. The network was just blown up. The majority leader of the United States Senate condemned them for what they did. It's not just throw it on television. I wish it was, but it's not that simple. You're right, probably the lawyers need to be involved. I just had a production assistant do it. Good question, actually.
And this will be our last question.
No
right?
problem.
The lucky last one.